when something is screwed shut, bolted shut, locked, and is therefore non-accessible, the standards of practice say that you are not responsible to inspect it. So when that's the case, you want to make sure that you disclaim that. You need to disclaim whatever you don't have access to. And you should explain why you're disclaiming something, because your report is your roadmap for what you're supposed to look at. And if you don't explain why you're not looking at something, then it raises red flags, and it's actually a violation of the state's code of ethics and standards of practice. So always explain why you're not looking at something, okay? And I like to take a picture. I'm very big on pictures. You'll see when we do the report, the actual report later on, you'll see why pictures are wonderful, because then it limits the questions that you'll be asked, you know, and usually what happens is you get these unnecessary calls when you're in the middle of an inspection, or you're in the middle of speaking to someone about, you know, maybe a new inspection, prospective client, and you're answering questions from an old inspection that could have just been done more clearly in the first place. You know, so people will use your inspections to make repairs to the property at some point once the property closes, or to get the property closed. So it's important that you're clear. And it covered tips for home inspection report writing, because that's what tonight's going to be about. It's going to be about writing your home inspection report, wrapping up some more laws that you need to know, and then you've got everything that you need. So what did you get out of that video on home inspection tips? The state gives you 5 business days to get your report in. You should know that for test purposes. But that's true, you know, getting your report in. And the realtors in our area expect your report to be in usually by the next day or the day after. If it's much past that, you're going to see that your referrals from them will drop exponentially, at least from that office. Because when a realtor is not happy with you, they will tell everyone in that office. That's why it's really important that you don't drop the ball, okay? Of course, like I mentioned last week, you want to let it sit for a little bit. You know, most realtors they don't need to report on site. There's like two trains of thought as far as how home inspectors think, the ones that I've dealt with at least over the years. And that is, I want to get it done, get it off my desk, and move on to my next project. That's number one. So they like to do the on-site reports. Sometimes they buy into a franchise system where they have a book that they check the boxes of everything that applies, and they just hand it to them, and they're done, and they don't have to think about it anymore. I think your chance for mistakes with that kind of report is much greater. You can't go back, and most people don't want to go back and fix something, because that means then they're admitting that they've made a mistake. And that's a real hard thing for a lot of people to do. So I really, and the realtors don't need that from you. So you're setting a bar very high for yourself. The next day is great. And I kind of say by the next day is important. Obviously, if you do it in the morning on a Monday, in the evening is an ideal time to have it done. But as far as waiting a couple of days, you're going to start to forget things about the property. And you may get busy. You don't know what's going to happen in your schedule. You may get 3 calls for inspections, and all of a sudden, you're like, well, I still have to do the report from Monday. I haven't finished writing that up. So I'm an advocate of getting it written up. If you do a morning report, you should have it written up by evening. Let it sit, maybe after dinner, review it, and usually you'll find some mistakes in it. I don't mean typos. I mean items that were missing or not clarified, okay? Modules 1 to 3 of the program in New York State covers the entire inspection. That's everything to look at. That's kind of like, if you went to medical school, that's the anatomy. You got to learn all about the body and how it works. So modules 1 to 3 is learning all about the body of a house. And then what we do is we learn how to write up the report and the laws in module 4. And then the clinical, like a doctor has clinicals to apply what they've learned. That's what your module 5 will be. And then you've learned everything. Now you're not an expert, but after years you'll become an expert. And you need to keep forcing yourself to like study, learn, read anything that you can to stay on the ball. You're always learning. In real estate and home inspection, you're always learning. Okay. Then you go further to say, if the house is winterized, the inspector would turn on all shut-off valves. So we never turn on shut-off valves. We don't even touch shut-off valves. We look at them and we look to see if they look compromised. Do you see any kind of galvanic action occurring on those? Do they look like they're rusting? Are they leaking? If a shut-off valve is leaking, that's something that we would write up and then send the reader to the report, the summary of the report, to let them know that further review is recommended by a qualified plumber. Okay, so that would be something you don't want to do. So if it's included or excluded, then the answer is excluded. We never turn on something that's been shut down. All right, so here's some things you should have got from the video that we wanted you to watch about home inspection tips. Okay, so this is what you should have got from the video. Number one, that you always want to, as an earlier question addressed, you always want to make sure that you disclaim things that you don't inspect and address why. Why are we going to disclaim those things? Another thing is, whenever you have an issue with a component in a house, you always want to make sure that you cover 3 questions every time you have an issue. If there's a handrail missing, we can't just say handrail's missing. You just can't say handrail's missing and this is bad. Like you have to do it as follows. Step 1, what did you observe? And this is what was in the video, and we talked about this last week. Number 1, what did you observe? What's the implications? And what are you supposed to do about it? The what are you supposed to do about it is an action item. It's a verb, okay? So if the handrail's missing on the back porch, you would say something like this. The home inspector observed a missing handrail on the back porch. That's step 1. Good, now you've done it. This is what you've observed. Step 2, implications. The implication of this situation is safety. That's all. It's a safety issue. Safety issues rank high. Okay? But usually further review by a qualified contractor is acceptable. Okay? So that's the 3 steps. That's something that I wanted you to get from the video that we had you watch. Okay? You shouldn't have any bad habits. You should have no bad habits because this is something brand new that you're doing. So this is the best time for me to give you good practices to get used to. But the thing is, I've learned over the years, and again, I've been doing this for a lot of years. Actually, I'm home instructor number 1. So I'm the first person in New York ever approved as a home inspector instructor. So I've really been doing it a long time. The thing is, some people are real stubborn and they don't care like what I say or what any instructor would tell them. They're just stubborn. They do their own thing. So while you're here with us, I just want to make sure that you're hearing it correct from us. And then once you finish, I guess you can do whatever you want. And that's why when we finally get out to do Module 5 inspections, we review your reports very carefully. The instructor, you're going to follow the instructor around for the first property that you inspect, and he's going to tell you what to write down exactly and what you're looking at exactly. And of course, it's not a bad time for you to jump in and say, well, what about this and what about that? That's all fine, okay? You're learning. You're always learning, and you always are encouraged to ask questions with us. But then after that, the instructor follows you around for the remaining inspections. And the instructor wants to make sure, well, did you notice this? Well, did you notice that? And then that's where you put into play what we're doing right now. You put into play exactly, oh, wait, I remember Mike was covering what you do when you see a repair on the exterior of the house. I remember what addendum items we need to use so that we cover our assets, okay? And we'll talk all about that this evening too. So one of the other things you should have got from that video that we're talking about right now is the fact that you may see 4 electrical related things at the property. You might have faceplates missing in the garage on receptacles or outlets. You might have a GFCI issue in the master bath. You might have scorched wires in the service panel box. And the thing is, everything I've just noted to you are spread throughout the house. It's not like everything is just in a row. Like one thing will happen and then the next electrical item will be the second thing you see. And it's not like that. You know, and that's why you're jumping around your report. That's why I hope you did put little tabs so you can find things quicker. It'll make life easier for you. So another thing you should have got from the video that we had you watch is to lump similar information together. As I mentioned earlier, your home inspection summary is separated into 2 parts, the exterior and then the interior. And we do that specifically because you do your exterior inspection first. You start on the outside of the house. Then you proceed to the inside. So if the service entrance wire is an issue and the exterior receptacle doesn't work, well, then you lump those 2 items together. Don't list things in your summary for the exterior that there's like 2 electrical things, and then you have an issue with cracks in the driveway, and then you have an issue with peeling paint on the trim work, and then there's another electrical item. Those electrical things should be kept with, I want to see all electrical together on the exterior. I want to see all electrical together on the interior. I want to see on the interior, they're all, you know, plumbing. All plumbing things should be together. You know, well, what else is on the outside? Oh, the roof. Okay, so all roofing things should be together. You know, the roof is a big percentage of square footage of the property that you're looking at. So you might notice more roof issues towards the back of the house, but in the front, you've seen 5 other things, including a roof issue. So don't put the back roof issues that you observe mixed in with peeling paint. Keep it all together. Have little sections, and it's up to you. It's a logical way to present your report. Okay, it just makes sense to do that. So hopefully that makes sense. And those are the big takeaways that I wanted you to get from that video. So if you didn't get that, I would encourage you to watch it again. And there's some really good pointers in there too. Okay, I just don't want to reiterate the whole thing. Otherwise, what was the whole, we should have just watched it together then. Okay. Answers, but I'm going to read the questions and give you the answers. So here we go. Number 1, licensed home inspectors in New York must include what information on all advertisements? Okay, so the answer to number 1 is letter D. Your status as a licensed home inspector, as well as your state license number. Your state license number starts with a 16 and then a number of zeros and then your unique number. That's the number that you have for the rest of your life. Question number 2, you can actually not worry about that. New York no longer has a home inspection council. They had a council and then they got rid of it. And that's the end of story. So everything for New York State is taken care of by the Department of State. Number 3, there are 3 occupations specifically exempt from needing to be licensed as a home inspector if acting within their scope of profession. Which choice is correct? You should have picked choice A. Code enforcement officers, professional engineers, and registered architects. Number 4, the main body of laws that regulate home inspectors in New York State is known as Article what? Choice B is a correct answer. Article 12B. Next, how many total hours of education are required to earn a New York State home inspector's license? The optimal answer is choice C, 140 hours. Number 6, the state licensing regulations covers units that range from what? Choice D is the correct answer, 1 to 4 units. That's specifically stated in Article 12B of the Home Inspector Licensing Act. Number 7, which of the following items are not part of New York's home inspection licensing regulations? The correct answer is choice B, radon. If you remember from last week, we specifically covered that radon and pest inspection were 2 items specifically excluded in the law. That's why you can't get continuing education credit for taking any course that includes radon or pest or wood inspection. Number 8, how many hours of classroom education are required to qualify for a New York home inspection license? The correct answer is 100. I just want to take a moment and let you know that the Module 4 exam tends to be the exam that people score the lowest on out of Mods 1, 2, 3, and of course Module 5 doesn't have an exam. And I think the reason why is because it's a very wordy exam. It's really easy to pick 140 hours if you don't read the question carefully. So always make sure you really read things carefully. It's sad to lose points over a silly thing from not reading, okay? Number 9, a second offense of the home inspection licensing law by a home inspector may result in a penalty of, the correct answer is choice B, no less than $1,000 fine or more than $5,000 per offense. Number 10, which of the following choices represents a limitation that might be noted in your home inspection report? The correct answer is C, snow covering the ground. Anything that prohibits you from seeing the component that you're trying to inspect, we call that a limitation. Number 11, when we discuss scope, we are referring to choice B, what will or will not be part of the inspection. What will or will not be part of the inspection. That's very often found on the state exam. And anytime I say the state exam, I'm referencing the one that's put through the national exam that they administer for the state. That's PSI is the one that does that. Number 12, what person signs and takes responsibility for the home inspection report? The correct answer is A, the licensed individual who inspects the property. That's so obvious, but you don't even know how many times people get it wrong. They read it wrong or they understand it wrong. 13, if a home inspector's license is revoked by the Department of State, what entity would review this decision if requested by the licensee? Choice B, the State Supreme Court. 14, licensed New York State home inspectors must give their client the completed report within, choice D, 5 business days. 15, which statement is true regarding suspension or revocation of a home inspection license? Choice C, revocation is generally for no less than 5 years. A lot of people get that one wrong. Remember, it's 5 years minimum revocation period for a home inspection license according to Article 12B. 16, what part of the home inspection report provides an overview of the inspection and essentially helps the buyer to make a final decision as to whether or not to buy a home? Choice D, the summary. The summary is the one place that you should be able to go to see everything that's wrong with the house. Don't forget, in the summary, we put only poor and unsafe items. Poor and unsafe items. 17 is next. Which of the following options is not a valid home inspection reporting format? Choice B, handwritten. I want to give you a test taking idea, which is anytime you see a question that has a not, an NOT in there, read it, and reread it. People get them wrong quite a bit. It should jump up and down. When you see a not, it should be jumping up and down like, I really got to read this carefully. 18. What individual should review your home inspection engagement contract before you begin performing home inspections? Choice C is what we're looking for. C is your attorney. Now we're talking about, and sometimes questions give us an opportunity to have a little discussion, as you've noticed. Your home inspection contract, or what we call engagement letter, gives you permission to do that inspection for your client. That's the agreement between you and your client, the person hiring you to do the home inspection. It outlines what you will and will not do as part of your inspection as well. But before you give them that contract, you should have an attorney review it. And after we finish your quiz, I'm going to talk about home inspection contracts and what you can do to have the best possible contract. So an attorney should review that to make sure that everything you need is in there. Because we're not allowed to give you a contract and say, here you go, you're all ready to go. Because then you could sue us if there's a problem. And we can't give legal advice at the school, but I can sure point you in the right direction to limit your liability and give you the best suggestions so that you can have the best contract to protect you. 19. Which of the following components would typically be excluded during a normal inspection of a heating system? The optimal choice is C. C is the heat exchanger. This is a very, very common question on home inspection exams because most people think that the heat exchanger should be inspected. The problem is in the newer furnaces that you're going to mostly run across, and every year that passes, you'll see fewer and fewer old furnaces. The heat exchanger is so deep down inside the furnace that it's nearly impossible to see much of it. 20. When a home inspector gives a real estate agent $20 for every inspection that they get referred, we call this a choice B, kickback. You can't do that. Kickback is the answer to this question. 21. What is the main problem with a home inspection accommodating a client who wants you to find something wrong with the property so that he or she can get out of the sale? The optimal choice is D. It's an example of not being objective. That comes right from chapter 1 of your textbook. You're not allowed to do that. You go in and you do an inspection, you can't make something sound worse to make your client happy. And if anything, we don't want to make things sound horrible and terrible, especially if they're normal things that you will run across. But if it's a safety issue, you can't sugarcoat a safety issue. You've got to be honest. You don't want to write your reports in such a way that you'll keep the realtors happy. You've got to keep everything in a perspective. 22. A home inspection is not, here's a not again. A home inspection is not considered, choice B is the optimal answer. It's not considered to be a code-compliant inspection. This is why you should never bring up the word code. In your report, when you're speaking to clients, the most you should say about code is that the standards of practice prohibit me from talking about code. We are not code enforcement officers. They wear a whole different hat than we do. If it turns out that a code issue and a safety issue overlap, well, we're talking about safety. We're never talking about code. 23. If a home inspector observes a leak in a skylight during the course of a home inspection, he or she should, the optimal choice is D, make note of what was observed in his or her report and possibly recommend monitoring depending on the severity of it. So obviously, if it's leaking in front of you and you can see it leaking, well, you're not going to monitor. We don't monitor something that's not functioning. We don't sit there and say, wow, it's leaking, I think I'll watch it. Like, no, it doesn't work like that. If something is in your face not working, then we do the 3 steps. What did you observe? The home inspector observed a leaking skylight in the bathroom upstairs. Step 2, the implications. Well, let's see, what happens? This is where you start talking. By the way, if you don't currently talk to yourself, you probably will. Most experienced home inspectors, they have really good conversations with themselves. And you have to rationalize like things as you go through it. So I'm going to do this with you in real time, okay? So the implication of a leak, well, the whole purpose of the building envelope is to keep the elements out. You know, we don't have siding and a roof on a house just because it looks pretty. We have it in place because we don't want the snow and the rain and the wind getting inside. So now we have a situation where one of the components of the building envelope is allowing this to happen. So how would you want to write up an implication of that? What do you think you would want to write? Now, you have to know what implication means. Implication lets your client know the importance of the issue that you're raising. In other words, it helps them put into perspective the situation so that they can see in the scheme of everything how important this is. So I'm going to take a moment and let you think about it. What do you think the implication of a leaking skylight is? Again, you're supposed to be interactive, so I want to hear from you as well. Okay, so we've got a few things here. May cause interior water damage. Okay, that's true. Concealed water damage and structural damage. Okay. Now, Nick, you want to be careful. You don't want to scare the bejeebers out of people. Okay. Can eventually cause major roofing damage. Okay. Water damage to interior finishes and structure. Okay. So I like those choices. I think that's good. You want to say the home inspector observed the upstairs bathroom skylight leaking, comma, the implication is possible damage to the interior and further issues. You don't have to get real specific. Now, the action item. What would you say the action item is so that we can complete our 3-step process? What would you say is our 3rd step? So I know you know how to do this. Nope, not monitor. If you stare at that leak, if it doesn't stop raining, it will leak forever. Staring at that will not make it go away. But thank you for saying that. Yes, Paul is correct. Further review by a qualified contractor. Don't forget, home inspectors don't have the power to make people fix things. So we always review the active leak, even if you're in the bathroom and if the trap is leaking, if the S trap is leaking, or P trap if you have the less optimal of the two, is leaking, we don't monitor leaks. A leak is something that shouldn't be happening. Okay, a leak is a sign of a bigger problem to occur, actually. Recommend a professional roofer. Actually, the best thing for a skylight leak, Lori, the best thing to do is recommend further review by a qualified contractor. And then it's not your problem what kind of contractor they get. As a matter of fact, sometimes your client will ask you, who can fix this for me? And part of the standards of practice for New York and the laws and regulations that we cover is you don't recommend your friends to go fix things. You know, you should recommend at least 3 different people if you are going to recommend. That's what the real estate people are taught to do. Of course, you can't fix anything until after closing, so that's not going to help them out much. Turns out that a leaking skylight won't hold up a sale. As a bank appraiser myself, I have to walk into the house and see that it's leaking for me to have an issue with it. Okay, so let's wrap up this quiz. Okay, so the next one we're going to look at is 24. True or false? Now, just so you know, no exams will ever have true and false on there. It's not optimal. It's always a 4-choice, multiple choice. A home inspector should not be providing a warranty or guarantee of any system found in a residential dwelling. Now, what makes this a little bit more confusing is that you have a not in there. So whether the question has a not and it's multiple choice or true and false, it still raises red flags. You want to still read it and reread it very carefully. The optimal answer is true. And finally, we have 25. True or false? Home inspectors should try to be as conservative as possible when providing costs to repair or costs to cure in their home inspection report. The answer is false. And the reason why is you shouldn't be providing any cost to do anything. Okay, so that is your Module 4 practice quiz. I want to talk about home inspection contracts now. So we call your home inspection, matter of fact, please pull them out. We emailed you 2 contracts. We emailed you the one that says sample, sample, sample on it. And we emailed you one from one of our friendly schools in downstate New York. I've been doing this for a long time, and I've have relationships with different school owners. In Albany, I have a relationship with a school owner. I reviewed her textbook, and she reviewed mine. And you just do things with other. It's a good thing to do. You help each other out. There's no union in the real estate school business, so we all kind of just help each other out so we can kind of get through, and we're friendly competitors. And I provided to you a sample contract that we've been using for years, as well as a one from a competing school, so that you could see how we do things a little bit different. But the most common question people say is, why can't I just use this contract as is? And again, the reason is we can't give you legal advice. Our goal with our home inspection program is that you get everything that you need, so you hit the ground running. You get a report writing system. Of course, you know how to do home inspections. You know how to fill out your paperwork for the state. There's even a point to where when you're ready to get liability insurance, we have a place that is relatively inexpensive, and it's somewhere in the $200 to $300 price range. So we'll give that to you as you get closer to applying for your license. But we want to make sure you hit the ground running. And one of the things includes giving you something to work with, a home inspection contract. And the best thing that you can do, especially now that you've got the time, probably a lot of time, is start looking for other home inspection contracts online from other New York home inspection companies. And what I would encourage you to do, okay, this is like the perfect world. If you don't do it, it's not my business. I'm just giving you the best advice. What I would do if I was recommended, if I was in your position. Find a few other companies from around New York State that have their home inspection contracts online. Print them, and then when your head is clear and there's no kids running around and driving you crazy or whatever's going on at your house, spread out. You've got one from us that says sample, 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 one from the friendly school that we included for you, and then hopefully you pull up at least 2 other ones. And then with a clear head, go through and read each one. So you read ours, okay, you got that. Then you read the next one, and you say, oh, wait, there was nothing about this, there was nothing about that, and start highlighting what you remember not seeing in the first one. Then with another color highlighter, read the third one that you found online from another New York State school, or I'm sorry, from another. The third one should be from another home inspection company that you researched that happen to have it online, because a lot of home inspection companies have this information online, so their clients can read it in advance of sitting down and going through the whole process of hiring an inspector. So with another color highlighter, you're going to go through the third one and say, wait a minute, this wasn't in either of the first two that I read, this concept. And then the fourth one with another color highlighter, you're going to go through and see, well, what's in the fourth one that's not in the first, second, or third one? And then what you should do is review with a real estate attorney this information and say, are these paragraphs that I highlighted in the second, third, and fourth ones, are they legal to have in my home inspection engagement letter or contract? Because sometimes there's things in contracts that even though people might agree to it, if the state has a law against that concept, you can't say something that's contrary to the law of the state. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay? Is there any questions about what I'm trying to explain to you? Do you get what I'm saying? That's the most efficient way, because here's the problem. You can't just hire an attorney and say, hey, I need a home inspection contract. Can you whip one up for me? It's such a rare thing. It's so hard to find lawyers that can actually do that. For the longest time, I would recommend my favorite real estate attorney. And he said, Mike, stop recommending people to me because I don't do this enough. I do real estate enough and I know all the laws and everything, but I'm not a contract lawyer. I just know real estate, and I don't feel comfortable giving that advice. I said, okay, well, I'm trying to help my students out, So it's kind of like, I don't know, like there's a lot of mediocrity out there. So there's not tons of people walking the streets saying, gosh, I need to find a lawyer to help me write my home inspection contract. I mean, we're a big minority in New York State. There's very few of us. There's barely 300 inspectors that work west of Rochester. So there's not a lot of us. And there's not a lot of demand for what I'm having you do. But anyone that understands real estate, if they read it, they'll be able to say to you, okay, well, you know what? There's nothing illegal about saying this. So those items that you highlighted in the second, third, and fourth contracts, you can put in your first contract and feel comfortable. Of course, have them read the first one too to make sure. You're probably going to spend $300 to $400 at least for this. And I'm sorry about that, but you're much better off doing that because you will regret it when you go to court and then have an issue later on. You do it once, you're not going to have to do it again for a long time unless laws or something changes, okay? And at the bottom of our home inspection contract, there's a thing called an exculpatory clause. And that exculpatory clause was on one of your reviews that you had watched. It says New York State Home Inspection, Review of New York State Home Inspection Law. The exculpatory clause is towards the bottom, right above the signatures on our home inspection engagement letter. And what it is it basically says that your client agrees that if there's any issues with the inspection or any part of the process, he or she agrees that it will be limited, the cost of any litigation will be limited to the cost of the home inspection contract. So let me rephrase that. That exculpatory clause basically says that your person can only sue you up to the cost of the home inspection. And right now, that's legal in New York State. We don't foresee any changes with that. Of course, if that changes a lot. That means you're going to need errors and omissions insurance for sure. That is correct, Lori. You can only be sued up to the cost of the inspection. Now, I want to let you know that exculpatory clause is not legal in every state. So if people from out of state are watching this, you need to check with your state. I know at one time, Connecticut did not allow that. Massachusetts didn't allow it. So it's really important that you check your laws for your state. Okay, but it's allowed in most states right now, exculpatory clauses. And they make home inspection more affordable because, you know, if it's costing you $2,000 a year to have errors and omissions insurance, then, you know, something's got to give somewhere, you know, and you're going to end up having to charge more. Okay. But, and I'm not saying you shouldn't have errors and omissions insurance. It's a business decision you have to make. Some people say that if you have errors and omissions insurance, it makes you a target to get sued because they have something to go after. So this is something you really got to think long and hard about and talk to your favorite lawyer and get some advice, you know, and do some research. You've got the time now to do it. Once you get your license and things get back to normal, you may get busier than what you'll ever imagine. So you have more time now than you'll ever have, especially under the circumstances.